Hello, I'm Theodore Parker, and this is the Side Show. And today is Wednesday, July 20th, 2022. Right now, the temperature is about 75 degrees. These last early days of the week, now that we're in the middle of it, around here have been high temperature days with weather people talking about the map is red, be careful. Today is another one of those days, promising to go up to at least 95 with the heat warning intact. Still dealing with the mask, which conversations kind of show me that even though we say the numbers are high as far as the positivity rate, and by we I mean people that come in contact with people and keep track of those kind of things. Um, like the last time I announced it here at the beginning of the week, I think it was like 16.96%. And again, I emphasize that you want a positivity rate, according to medical experts and the Center for Disease Control, of 5% or less. That means that things are not as likely to spread with COVID 19 and its variants, of which we have two new strains announced to the public from the CDC that you have to be aware of. That just because you dashed out to go do this or do that and didn't grab your mask doesn't mean that things are not still contagious. So, as always, I say it's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. And as probably as far as away as it is from most people's common thought pattern, if you don't have your mask on, you are at risk not, well, to catch some variant of COVID 19, but also to pass on some variant of COVID 19. Um, Most people rely on the fact that whether or not they are feeling well or feeling okay or feeling good to be a warning to go get checked out. But sometimes it's not always like that. So, be that as it may, the two new variants of COVID 19, BA4, was calculated, I think, at 52% or 54%, and BA5 was at, I think, 46%. So, what I wanted to share this morning, being as we're still all in the middle of the government doing things, this and that. And the last time I really got excited was because I had hopes of there being a gun ban put into effect, you know, by the Senate. But it seems like my hopes were somewhat dashed in that area because, for reasons known only to them, that was not their obligation, although it was sitting in the Senate and was discussed March 11th of 2021, over a year ago. So, as I have a tendency to do, look around news articles, look at the internet feed, et cetera, et cetera. This recent shooting, uh, and when I say that, that's you kind of like have to qualify that when you say recent shooting, because next question is which one. So I'm speaking of the one, since I'm here in Kentucky, in Indiana, at the mall, and I found a person um, who had some thoughts about it as well, and wrote an article, better positioned than I am in presently, um, to write a editorial article in Leo Weekly, and the person's name is Erica Rutker. She's a columnist for this magazine, etc. So let me just get right into it because I'm not sure how long, but the details kind of proclaim themselves. It has something to do with the feelings and also facts. So here we go. Erica Rucker on the American Bullet, Tyranny's Greatest Weapon. I know this isn't exactly a Louisville story, talking about Louisville, Kentucky, but after the mall shooting in Indianapolis at the Greenwood Park Mall, I feel obligated to say something that might not be said in the midst of the chatter surrounding this incident. There were 3 people shot and killed by a gunman with a long gun and many rounds of ammunition. The gunman was stopped, killed by another person, the mythical good guy with the gun. The type of gun hasn't been identified just yet, but no matter. Here we are with another shooting. In just hours, we'll be on to the next, and we'll let this one fade like all the others into memory with inaction from our politicians and citizens. The gun nuts and their weapons are instruments of the tyranny they claim to fear. And she goes on to explain the statement. Yes, I said it. It bears repeating. The gun nuts and their weapons are instruments of the tyranny they claim to fear. I'll address the good guy with the gun later. The American attraction to gun borders on obsession and is a kink like no other in this country, fed by the neo-fascism of the modern Republican Party. And you have to appreciate the play on words, neo-fascism, etc. The last time I talked about that was in reference to the Black Lives Matters Party and their leaders. But here we go, continuing. If Republicans feed the kink, they don't fear it being used against them. They get to be the dom. I shouldn't have to explain every reference, but while their subs get to hold the weapons and point it where their masters tell them. Coincidentally, it is never pointed at their masters. Modern republicanism is a sort of oppressive, rights-stealing, fake morality pimping, herd mentality leading that creates the perfect framework for their brand of fascism to slide in undetected as tyrannical, or as it is defined by the Oxford English Dictionary, the cruel, unreasonable, or arbitrary use of power or control. The way that Republicans will say that guns don't kill people and turn the argument to the person and the type of control necessary for those kinds of people is simply a dog whistle that their belief system is about the control of the body and not the instrument of deadly force. So in the Greenwood Park shooting, we have a shooter with a long gun and 100 rounds of ammo, and we have the good guy with the gun who shot and killed the shooter. On the surface, we have danger and the stoppage of danger by another with a weapon. It looks like a very simple scenario until we realize both shooter and good guy are one and the same, instruments of the same side. Let me clarify that I'm not villainizing the man who stopped the mass shooter. He thought he was doing his duty, and he did likely save lives. What I mean by this statement, that they're instruments of the same side, is that neither of their weapons were used or available to fight tyranny. They were both used against another citizen. And I think this is the whole reason why I'm really sharing this or reading it verbatim. This line right here. They were both used against another citizen, which is a reference to the Second Amendment, right to bear arms, militia, etc., etc. Okay. One citizen, of course, putting many others in danger, sold on the idea that guns can solve problems. The good guy used his weapon as judge, jury, and executioner for the state, sold on the same idea that guns can solve problems. Do you see where I'm going? This is deeper than the surface of this situation. On a very basic level, we have two people who likely share some very simple core beliefs about guns and the rights to bear arms. Both shooter and good guy get their information from the same source. The idea that their guns are within their rights and that they are for personal protection or to fight against the appearance of being oppressed. This situation certainly seems to fit that plot line, except that while these two gunmen were shooting it out in the mall, the people who made this event possible in the first place, gun pimping modern Republicans, were actively passing laws to make both of their lives less truly free. Modern Republicans call themselves the right or even the hard right, which is directly linked to ideology that we were taught is dangerous when we learned history as children. This ideology brands itself as moral for the people, etc., but in practice, its functions are restrictive and inhumane. Voting restrictions, healthcare restrictions, nativism, accepting the practice of material support for the citizens. This ideology increases militarization of the police and heavily funds the military. And while the citizens in America are also able to be armed, some citizens, the level of personal gun ownership and access will always be below the level to truly subvert the risk of totalitarianism. Pew pew versus tanks, planes, and bombs. The truth is, on the backside of this shooting at Greenwood Park Mall, we're left with bodies and no accountability. Why? Because for accountability to be achieved, we would need to restrict personal gun ownership, which would start a landslide of citizens truly asking for the return of power to them from the government. Less tanks, planes, and bombs. Because if we can't have them, neither can you. Excuse me. And what we know is that the government isn't relinquishing any control. So blood on American streets will continue to be spilled, and nothing will happen with guns, because as long as we are fighting and killing each other under the guise of personal protection, freedom, and tyranny, those in power are safe to truly do whatever they wish to restrict our freedom, movement, ability to reproduce, or not. We're doing their job for them. We're the tyranny for the tyrant. Kabish? So that was it. Took a couple of minutes. And the author happens to be a female. And a little bit about her. Erica Rucker is Leo Weekly's arts and entertainment editor. In addition to her work at Leo, she is a haphazard writer, photographer, tarot card reader, and fair to middling purveyor of motherhood. Her earliest memories are of telling stories to her family and promising that the next would be shorter than the first. They never were. You can follow Erica on Twitter, but beware of honesty, overt blackness, and occasional geeky outrage. Erica Rucker, Feral Negress. I have to smile on that one. But anyway, that's what I wanted to say. That's what I wanted to share because it seemed timely, potent, and right where we are. That's it. Hashtag.